Oh boy, where do I even begin with this jaw-dropping display of galactic foolishness? Seriously, if you're going to mess up in interstellar warfare, these guys really took the go big or go home approach, except they definitely weren't going home after this. The grand hall of the Zelthar High Council glimmered with its usual over-the-top splendor. Because, when you're planning to dominate another species, it's essential to have crystal chandeliers the size of moons. The council members, draped in flowing robes probably worth more than most planetary defense budgets, gathered around a massive hologram of Earth. Their six-fingered hands were folded in what they believed was an impressive display of intellect. Gregory Banks, gleaming in his midnight blue uniform adorned with so many medals he jingled when he walked, stood before them, exuding smugness that surely deserved a patent. His antennae twitched with barely concealed excitement as he explained what he called the perfect plan. "Esteemed council members," Troy Harper began, his voice oozing with the kind of confidence typically seen in people about to walk into glass doors, "our analysis of human civilization has uncovered their fatal flaw." Narrator's note: at this point, I feel obligated to mention that their analysis mostly consisted of watching 1990s Earth entertainment broadcasts, which of course is the most reliable way to gather military intelligence. The hologram zoomed in on various spots around Earth, focusing on places the Zelthar had identified as youth containment and conditioning facilities, or as humans prefer to call them, schools. These facilities, Troy Harper continued, gesturing dramatically, clearly trying to win a Tony Award, hold their most valuable resource, their young. He paused for effect, as all alien military presentations apparently require. And yet they leave them virtually unguarded. Council member Megan Carter, whose facial ridges were sculpted with what I can only assume is space Botox, because hey, that's a thing now, leaned forward. "You believe attacking these places will force their immediate surrender?" "Exactly." Troy Harper practically bounced on his heels. "Humans are fiercely protective of their children. By securing about 200 of them as strategic assets, we can bring their entire civilization to its knees without firing a single plasma bolt." "Oh, honey, no," I thought to myself. The council members nodded, their headrests bobbing in unison like a bizarre alien synchronized swimming team. None of them seemed to question that maybe, just maybe, kidnapping the children of a species that once declared war on emos and then lost might not be the smartest idea. "We have selected 5 key targets," Gregory Banks announced, marking specific locations on Earth's surface, small facilities that would be easy to manage but diverse enough to have a global impact. "The humans will have no choice but to acknowledge our superiority and submit to our rule." Narrator's fun fact: this is what we in the business like to call tempting fate while doing jazz hands. The head of the council, Supreme Leader Voxilith, whose title was almost as long as the list of reasons this plan was a disaster, raised his hand in approval. "You have the council's authorization, Gregory Banks. Proceed with the operation." As the council members filed out, congratulating themselves on their genius strategy, not a single one of them bothered to ask why humans had so many stories about parents going on vengeful rampages when their kids were threatened. Not one of them wondered why even human entertainment depicted mothers lifting cars to save their young, or why every major human religion has some version of "don't mess with the kids." Look, I'm just the narrator here, but I feel it's my duty to point out that if you're going to poke a sleeping bear, maybe don't start by stealing its cubs. Just saying. The chamber emptied, leaving only the hologram of Earth slowly spinning in the darkness, blissfully unaware of the impending lesson about why certain species have evolved an instinctive fear of the phrase "mama bear." And folks, that's how our story begins, with a group of aliens about to learn that there are exactly 3 things you don't mess with in this universe: death, taxes, and human parents whose kids are in danger. Grab your popcorn because this is going to be one wild ride. You know those moments in horror movies when you're yelling at the screen because the characters are making obviously terrible choices? Well, buckle up because our alien friends are about to make some decisions that will make those horror movie protagonists look like geniuses. It was a completely normal Tuesday morning at Canyon Ridge Elementary in New Mexico, if you ignored the oddly dark shadow that wasn't a cloud at all, but something far more suspicious, drifting ominously over the playground. Mrs. Rebecca Harris, a third-grade teacher who had survived 27 years of teaching, an achievement that honestly deserved some sort of combat medal, was in the middle of explaining fractions when a sudden, inexplicable feeling of danger surged through her. Oh, right. Did I forget to mention she was ex-Special Forces? The aliens missed that detail, apparently. Stellar intelligence work, folks. In the back row, 8-year-old twins Tyler Adams and Sophie Bennett had already noticed something was off. Sophie Bennett, whose talent for causing chaos was only rivaled by her brother's knack for creating just about anything out of spare parts, raised her hand. "Mrs. Rebecca Harris?" Sophie Bennett asked with the innocent tone that had fooled exactly 0 adults in her life. "Are alien spaceships supposed to be invisible? Because there's a giant, nothing-shaped thing blocking the sky." Before Mrs. Rebecca Harris could respond, simultaneous reports began flooding in from 4 other primary school locations: Tokyo, Lagos, Sao Paulo, and Oslo, all reporting the same alarming situation: massive shadows where shadows shouldn't be, suggesting synchronized kidnappings. Because if you're going to make a catastrophic mistake, why not go all out and make it on 5 different continents at once? The Zelthar ships decloaked in perfect harmony, hovering above their targets like oversized metal moths, completely unaware that some bugs just don't survive the encounter. At Canyon Ridge, Mrs. Rebecca Harris was already springing into action. Her teacher voice dropped several octaves into what her old commanding officer would have instantly recognized as her "things are about to get real" tone. "Everyone under your desks. Standard lockdown procedure." Tyler Adams, who'd been quietly disassembling his pencil sharpener for reasons that were about to have catastrophic relevance, looked at his sister, ready to kick off some chaos. Sophie Bennett's grin could have powered a small city for a week. Now, for those wondering, Plan Chaos wasn't an official school emergency procedure, but it was about to become one for the aliens. As the ship's transport beam activated, sweeping across the classroom in what the Zelthar no doubt thought was an impressive show of advanced technology, it turned into a masterclass in why you should never, ever give human children a new toy to figure out. As the beam started lifting the students, Sophie Bennett, doing what she did best, initiated a diversion by singing Baby Shark at top volume. The other kids, showing that hive mind behavior isn't just for aliens, immediately joined in. The Zelthar crew neural interfaces nearly crashed from the overwhelming acoustic assault. Meanwhile, Tyler Adams had finished whatever unholy modification he'd made to his pencil sharpener, and as the beam continued its work, he hurled it straight into the beam. The resulting shower of graphite and mechanical parts did something that the ship's engineers would later argue was theoretically impossible. It made the transport beam hiccup. Mrs. Rebecca Harris, absolutely not letting her class be kidnapped without a fight, grabbed her emergency bag, containing far more tactical gear than most teachers' emergency kits, and deliberately stepped into the beam. Pro tip: if your evil plan involves abducting a class of 3rd graders, maybe check the teacher's resume to see if it includes classified operations in areas I'm not legally allowed to name. Inside the ship, the aliens were quickly learning some hard truths about human children. They don't follow instructions, whether in their own language or in alien ones. Their ability to find buttons that shouldn't be pressed is nearly supernatural, and their capacity for making endless noise is unparalleled. Within minutes of arrival, Sophie Bennett had organized a raucous chorus of 99 bottles of milk on the wall. 3 kids had figured out that alien door controls weren't child-proof, or really proof against anything, and Tyler Adams had identified 16 ways to make things more interesting using just the contents of his pockets. The Zelthar security officer in charge of containing the humans developed a stressed twitch in his left antenna. "How do we make them stop?" he pleaded to his superior. "Stop what?" asked the commander, confusion painting his face. Narrator's note: at this exact moment, similar scenes were unfolding on 4 other ships across the globe. In Tokyo, a 9-year-old had hacked into the ship's internal communication system and was broadcasting K-pop. In Lagos, the Logos group had somehow turned their holding cell into an impromptu soccer field. In Sao Paulo, kids were conducting a science experiment using the ship's gravity controls. And in Oslo, well, let's just say those kids had watched too many Viking documentaries. As Mrs. Rebecca Harris sat quietly in the corner, Watching her students systematically drive their captors to the brink of madness, she allowed herself a small smile. Her emergency beacon was already active, and she knew exactly what was coming. Because there was one other thing the aliens had failed to consider. In the decades since humanity first noticed their ships, humans hadn't just been sitting around waiting to be invaded. No, they had been preparing. And thanks to some spectacularly poor judgment, the Zelthar were about to learn exactly what kind of preparation that was. Oh, and Tyler Adams had just figured out how to access the ship's ventilation system. But that's a problem for the next part of our story. You know those moments when someone makes such a massive mistake that everyone just pauses for a second, trying to process the sheer magnitude of the stupidity? That's basically how Earth's military leadership responded when the news of the abductions came in. Well, for about 30 seconds anyway. The Global Defense Coalition's underground command center in Geneva was surprisingly calm for a place dealing with humanity's first official alien contact. By calm, I mean the military commanders displayed a level of serenity that would make seasoned veterans nervously check the blast radius maps. Commander Rebecca Harris stood at the central holographic display, her uniform crisp, despite being pulled away from her daughter Emily Roberts' science fair. Emily Roberts, by the way, had been demonstrating her totally not dangerous robot project when the aliens decided to crash the party. Literally. "Status report," Commander Rebecca Harris asked, her voice carrying the controlled serenity of a tsunami just before it makes landfall. General Thompson, whose coffee mug read, "I survived my kid's teen years," barely pulled up the global tactical display. 5 simultaneous abductions, exactly as our intelligence predicted. Overconfident bastards. They even used the exact ship configurations we've been preparing countermeasures for. Remember, kids, just because you can cloak your ships doesn't mean people can't see you doing reconnaissance for the past 30 years, especially when you keep parking in the best spots at Area 51. "All emergency beacons are active," reported Admiral Yoshida, tapping through data streams on her tablet. "Every targeted school has at least one of our embedded personnel. Mrs. Rebecca Harris in New Mexico is already sending tactical data about the ship's interior layout." Commander Rebecca Harris allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. "Good. Let's prepare for the next phase." A small, predatory grin spread across Commander Rebecca Harris's face as she placed her palm on what appeared to be just an ordinary section of the wall. To anyone else, it seemed inconspicuous, but it hummed to life in response. Across the globe, hidden facilities began activating, each one springing to life with military precision. Mountainsides opened up like secret doors, desert sands parted with surgical precision, and ocean floors shifted in a coordinated effort. In Antarctica, a group of penguins found themselves bewildered when they realized what they thought was their territory was actually covering the largest shipyard humanity had ever built. Fun fact: those weren't just normal penguins, but that's classified info. Operation Found Out is now in effect, General Thompson announced, triggering a display of Earth's clandestine fleet ships, combining reverse-engineered alien technology with humanity's knack for creating explosive surprises, rose from their hidden locations. Colonel Daniel Blake, whose son had been one of the children abducted in Sao Paulo, quickly pulled up the tactical readiness report. "All ships report ready. Crews are more than ready." More than ready was perhaps an understatement. Each ship was staffed primarily by parents who had spent years preparing for exactly this moment. These were parents, not just military experts, but individuals who had perfected the art of handling the chaos of raising children, arguably the best training for dealing with whatever the Zelthar could throw at them. They didn't just fail to do their homework, Commander Rebecca Harris mused, scrolling through the intelligence reports. They didn't even bother to check if we were in school. To be fair, humanity had put a lot of effort into appearing harmless, preoccupied with cat videos, TikTok challenges, and debating pineapple on pizza. The fact that we had been quietly preparing for spatial warfare while maintaining that convincing facade of distracted normalcy? Pretty impressive. The command center's main screen flickered, showing the 5 alien ships still hovering above their targeted schools, clearly under the assumption that they had control of the situation. Meanwhile, Earth's hidden fleet began positioning itself with the kind of precision you'd expect from years of practice. They thought we wouldn't notice their surveillance, Colonel Daniel Blake chuckled, pulling up footage of Zelthar reconnaissance missions. We tracked every cloaked ship, cataloged every scan. Hell, we've been feeding them deliberately curated data for a decade. My favorite part, Admiral Yoshida added with a sly grin, was letting them believe our most advanced weapons were still just nuclear bombs and conventional explosives. The look on their faces when they see our quantum displacement cannons is going to be priceless. Narrator's note. Quantum displacement cannons are humanity's way of saying, remember those sci-fi movies you thought we made for fun? Surprise. Commander Rebecca Harris stood before the assembled leadership, her calm, composed expression shifting into something much more predatory, like a shark sensing blood in the water. The Zelthar thought they had discovered humanity's weakness by targeting our children, but instead, they had triggered every parent's instinctual find-out response, all at once. The tactical display updated in real time, showing the positions of Earth's fleet, over 200 ships, each commanded by someone who had spent years juggling military training and parent-teacher conferences. These weren't just soldiers. They were parents who had mastered the delicate art of handling everything from intergalactic combat to toddler tantrums. The Zelthar never stood a chance. All ships, this is command. Rebecca Harris's voice cut across the global communications network, steady and strong. The Zelthar have chosen to test humanity by targeting our children. Let's show them exactly why every human culture has legends about what happens when you harm our young. As someone who's seen the lengths human parents will go just to get their kids into a good school district, I almost feel sorry for the aliens. Almost. The response fleet began shifting into attack formation, their advanced stealth systems, ironic given they were reverse-engineered from Zelthar technology, keeping them hidden from the alien ships. Each ship was equipped with tech that the Zelthar had assumed was centuries beyond Earth's capabilities. "Oh, and command!" Mrs. Rebecca Harris's voice crackled over the comms. "You might want to hurry. Tyler Adams just figured out how to access their environmental controls, and Sophie Bennett's teaching everyone the Macarena. I give their crew about 20 minutes before they start begging us to take the kids back." Commander Rebecca Harris glanced at the final tactical readiness report, a glint in her eyes that suggested carefully contained parental fury. "Well then, let's not keep them waiting. All ships, prepare to execute Operation Found Out. Let's show these aliens exactly why you never, ever mess with human children." And that, dear readers, is when the Zelthar learned that their perfect plan had overlooked one tiny but crucial detail. Humanity hadn't spent the past few decades idly waiting for invasion. No, humanity had been preparing, while raising the next generation, a combination that had produced advanced defensive capabilities and an innate understanding of how to deal with chaos. The aliens were about to learn the hard way that the only thing more dangerous than human military might was human parental instinct. If you've ever seen the expression on a parent's face when their child is just 5 minutes late coming home, you can imagine how Earth's response fleet was feeling. Except instead of repeatedly calling their kids' phones, they had quantum weapons. Same urgency, different tools. The Earth fleet emerged from stealth like a parent materializing out of nowhere to catch a teenager sneaking out, sudden and devastatingly effective. Leading the assault on the New Mexico target was the Ed-As Consequence, commanded by former Special Forces operator Ryan Morgan, whose collection of World's Okayest Dad mugs completely contradicted his reputation as the most terrifying soccer parent in his daughter's league. "All ships, maintain formation." Ryan Morgan's voice crackled over the command channel, steady and firm. "Remember, we've trained for this, except with fewer paintball guns and a lot more plasma weapons." For those wondering, yes, they actually practiced ship-to-ship combat with paintball. The cleaning crews still have nightmares about it. The fleet split into 5 perfectly synchronized attack groups, each targeting one of the alien vessels. Ryan Morgan's group took the lead, their ships outfitted with technology that would have made even the most legendary sci-fi series look like a child's plaything. Turns out, all those years of mysterious weather balloon sightings weren't just myths. Humanity had been exceptionally skilled at hiding its homework. His tactical officer's voice broke through the silence. "We're picking up chatter from the alien vessel. Apparently the kids have started a game of the floor is lava, using the alien crew as safe zones. Ryan Morgan allowed himself a grin that bordered on pride. That's my girl, leading the resistance with recess games. His daughter, Emily Roberts, was among the abducted, and she had apparently decided to turn her natural ability to organize playground chaos into a strategic advantage. Narrator's note: never underestimate a child who's mastered the subtle politics of elementary school playground dynamics. They're basically tiny masterminds with light-up sneakers. The fleet's approach was flawless, everything executed with precision, a textbook strategy that had been perfected over decades of studying Zelthar tactics. Every potential evasive maneuver the aliens might attempt had already been anticipated by parents who'd spent years intercepting notes, predicting cookie-snatching plans, and, let's not forget, dealing with schoolyard drama. "Sir, communications," an officer's voice came through. "We're receiving a transmission from the Zelthar vessel." The alien commander's face appeared on the screen, his antenna twitching in indignation and growing horror. "Impossible! Your species shouldn't have this level of technology. Our intelligence indicated—" "Let me guess," Ryan Morgan cut in, his voice carrying the same tone he used when catching Emily Roberts trying to convince him that ice cream was a legitimate breakfast. "Your intelligence came from monitoring our public broadcasts and visible technology? Did you ever stop to wonder why we let you see only what we wanted you to see?" Fun fact: Earth had been broadcasting specially curated content on frequencies the aliens were known to monitor. Several popular sci-fi shows. They weren't just entertainment, they were elaborate disinformation campaigns. The aliens had been watching carefully scripted reality TV, thinking it was a documentary. The alien commander's face turned several shades, as if processing this revelation. "While you were busy feeling smug about your cloaking technology, we were reverse engineering it from the scout ship that crashed in 1947. Turns out, human parents are quite good at figuring out how things work. We've had years of practice child-proofing everything from kitchen cabinets to quantum drives." Across all 5 engagement zones, Earth's fleet executed a flawless containment maneuver. Ships moved with the kind of coordination that could only come from years of organizing school carpools, soccer practice pickups, and of course, emergency birthday parties. "Final warning," Ryan Morgan's voice rang out, his ship powering up weapons that the Zelthar had assumed were beyond Earth's capabilities. "Return our children, or find out why every human culture has legends about what happens when you harm our young. But we don't need to move mountains. We've got something better." The alien commander's response was immediately cut off by another transmission, this time originating from inside their ship. Sophie Bennett's voice came through clearly. "Mr. Alien, sir, Tyler Adams says to tell you he's almost figured out how to make your engines do a really cool thing. He's not sure if that sound is supposed to happen, though." There's a unique kind of dread that accompanies hearing a child say, "I made something cool," followed by an ominous sound. The Zelthar were getting a crash course in this particular feeling. The Zelthar commander's antenna flattened completely, a sign of their species' panic. In the background, the unmistakable sound of dozens of children singing "This is the Song That Never Ends" filled the air, interspersed with what could only be the ship's artificial gravity hiccuping. Ryan Morgan's tactical display lit up with troubling readings from the alien vessel. Their shields were fluctuating. Internal systems were showing patterns that suggested either a catastrophic malfunction or, more likely, some highly creative tampering. Their crew's biosignatures indicated levels of stress usually found in retail workers on Black Friday. "Sir," the tactical officer reported, barely able to contain his grin, "I think we can safely say the kids have softened them up for us." The alien commander tried to speak again, but was interrupted by Mrs. Rebecca Harris's voice cutting through the comms. "Command, you might want to hurry it up. Sophie Bennett just taught everyone about binary code by explaining how to tap dance messages through the deck plating, and Tyler Adams' latest project involves something he calls improvements to your life support system." Ryan Morgan turned to his crew, all of whom were parents, every single one of them recognizing that specific tone of, "These kids are about to do something spectacular and possibly explosive." "All ships, execute containment protocol," Ryan Morgan ordered with authority. "Let's show these aliens why Earth's greatest defensive technology isn't our weapons. It's our experience dealing with creative children." And that, dear readers, is when the Zelthar learned that they hadn't just kidnapped human children. No, they had unknowingly provided a masterclass in their own technology to the most inventive chaos-generating force in the known universe. The fact that those children's parents had access to a fleet of advanced warships was almost secondary to the mess the Zelthar had just created. The hunt wasn't merely beginning. It was about to evolve into a harsh lesson in why certain species develop instinctive fear responses to the phrase, "Hey, watch this." Imagine, if you will, the most sophisticated alien spacecraft in the galaxy being systematically dismantled by what could only be described as a very energetic third-grade field trip, unsupervised, with full access to every button aboard the Zelthar vessel hovering over New Mexico. First Officer Drashithil was undergoing what humans would describe as an existential crisis. His military training had prepared him for countless scenarios, but none of them involved dealing with a small human girl who continually referred to him as Mr. Sparkly Antenna while orchestrating what could only be described as mass mayhem in the ship's corridors. What Sophie Bennett called a totally normal classroom activity took place in the middle of the containment area, which had somehow been transformed into what she referred to as sense different stations. Groups of children were busily engaged in activities that should have been absolutely impossible with alien technology. "Okay, everyone," Sophie Bennett announced, exuding the authority of a seasoned playground queen. "Remember our classroom rules. Share the alien buttons fairly, and if something explodes, it wasn't us." Narrator's note: the fact that she had to specify that if something explodes should have been the first red flag for the aliens. In one corner, Tyler Adams had set up what he called the Science Center, surrounded by pieces of alien tech that he'd somehow disassembled using only a paperclip, possibly a juice box straw, and some very questionable ingenuity. 3 other kids were taking notes as he passionately explained his theory about the ship's gravitational field generators. "See, it's just like making a pillow," Tyler Adams said, poking something that was definitely not meant to be poked. "But with science, and if we reverse the polarity here..." The artificial gravity in their section hiccuped, causing several aliens in the corridor outside to suddenly find themselves stuck on the ceiling. Mrs. Rebecca Harris sat quietly in her corner, seemingly engrossed in a book. In reality, she was calmly transmitting detailed ship schematics through a subspace communicator disguised as a teacher's badge. 27 years of teaching 3rd grade had been the perfect cover for her true role as a deep-cover intelligence operative. After all, who would ever suspect a teacher of being a covert agent when she could maintain order in chaos? Fun fact: the intelligence agency had actually recruited her from teaching, recognizing that anyone who could handle 28 3rd graders on a sugar high during a holiday party had the perfect skill set for covert ops. "Mr. Sparkly Antenna," Sophie Bennett called out, walking over to the increasingly twitchy First Officer Drashithil. "We're ready for our cultural exchange presentation." Before Drashithil could protest, 30 children began performing what they claimed was a traditional Earth greeting ceremony, which was, in fact, just the chicken dance. The ship's neural interfaces tried desperately to process and translate this as a legitimate diplomatic ritual, but all it managed to do was experience what could only be described as a nervous breakdown. Meanwhile, in what was supposed to be a secure engineering section, Tyler Adams had somehow accessed the ship's maintenance ducts. "It's just like the slide at the playground, but sideways," he cheerfully explained, while rewiring things and humming the theme from his favorite cartoon. "Sir," a panic-stricken engineer reported to Drashithil, "the human child has somehow reprogrammed our internal sensors to play something called Baby Shark every time we try to scan for them." At this point, I feel obligated to mention that several alien crew members had begun stress molting. Mrs. Rebecca Harris finally looked up from her book, her expression carrying the serene calm that only a veteran teacher can achieve during moments of maximum chaos. "You know," she said to the increasingly frazzled First Officer Drashithil, "in my experience, it's better to just let them get it out of their system. They're actually being quite well-behaved." "Well-behaved?" Drashithil's antenna twitched violently in disbelief. "They've turned our detention area into something called a bounce house, using modulated force fields." "Oh, that's nothing," Mrs. Rebecca Harris smiled. You should see them during indoor recess when it's raining outside. The ship's AI, designed to handle everything from space combat to planetary invasions, was now experiencing what could only be described as a digital panic attack. It had tried to impose order using standard containment protocols, only to discover that human children treated rules like suggestions, and impossible was merely a personal challenge. Sophie Bennett had established a complex social hierarchy based entirely on who could do the best alien impression, while Tyler Adams's experiments had somehow improved the ship's efficiency by 23%, all while making every control panel light up in rainbow patterns. "Status report," Commander Gregory Banks barked over the ship's comm system. "Sir," Drashathil responded, watching as a group of children taught the ship's maintenance robots how to play Red Rover. "I regret to inform you that we may have miscalculated. The humans aren't primitive at all." "They're what?" Sophie Bennett asked innocently. While behind her, Tyler Adams successfully convinced the ship's fabrication unit to create ice cream. There's more," Drashathil whispered, "and I think their adult supervisor is actually enjoying this." Mrs. Rebecca Harris was indeed enjoying the scene, having just finished transmitting the complete defensive specifications of the ship to the approaching Earth fleet. "Remember, children," she called out in her teacher voice, "we want to show our alien friends the full Earth School experience." The look of pure terror on the alien crew's faces at the mention of the full Earth School experience was something that would be discussed in Zelthar therapy sessions for generations to come. "Oh, Sophie Bennett," she brightened, "does that mean it's time for show and tell? Tyler Adams just finished making something really cool with the quantum harmonizer. And that, dear readers, is when the Zelthar learned that the only thing more terrifying than human military might was the unlimited capacity for creative chaos that human children possessed. The fact that their teacher was actually a skilled intelligence operative? At this point, it was almost irrelevant. She was just making sure nobody accidentally conquered the universe while playing with alien tech. Ever seen that moment when someone realizes they've not just made a mistake, but have reached new heights in bad decision-making? That was the expression on Admiral KX's face as Earth's fleet surrounded his ships, while simultaneously his vessels descended into kid-induced chaos. The ED's consequence led the assault formation, with Ryan Morgan coordinating the boarding parties, each made up primarily of parents who'd spent the last few hours listening to their children creatively dismantle alien technology. Over the comms, Ryan Morgan's voice crackled with controlled amusement. "All teams, prepare for boarding. Remember your training, and try not to laugh too hard when you see what the kids have come up with." Inside the New Mexico vessel, Tyler Adams and Sophie Bennett orchestrated what they called Operation Maximum Recess, a carefully executed system of organized chaos that would have made Sunu proud if Sunu had been deeply invested in playground games and spontaneous science experiments. "Sir!" A flustered Zelthar officer rushed onto the bridge, his antenna practically knotted in panic. "The human children have—" Admiral KX, already showing signs of a stress-induced twitch, snapped at him. "What have they done?" "They've taught our maintenance robots to play hopscotch in the reactor cooling corridors," the officer stammered. "Engine efficiency is up 40%, but the entire place is covered in crayon drawings." Quick physics lesson. The seemingly random hopscotch patterns had somehow optimized the cooling flow, and the crayon drawings, those were purely for artistic flair. Just as the boarding parties breached the hull, Sophie Bennett decided it was time for the grand finale. "Okay, everyone," she called out. "Remember what Mrs. Rebecca Harris taught us about civic responsibility and peaceful protest." Mrs. Rebecca Harris, who had been quietly sabotaging systems while pretending to grade papers, looked up, clearly impressed. "You mean the lesson on coordinated civil disobedience?" she asked with a sly grin. "Sit down time," Sophie Bennett declared. Immediately, every child aboard, from the corridors to the maintenance ducts, sat down precisely where they were. Some even managed to wedge themselves into ceiling crawl spaces. The ship's crowd control systems, which were already struggling to process the concept of human children, had a complete meltdown trying to manage 30 perfectly well-behaved kids blocking every key passageway. Admiral KX stormed onto the bridge just as the boarding parties arrived, led by parents whose expressions promised this would be a teaching moment they wouldn't forget. "This is impossible," KX barked. "They're just children. How did they turn our ships against us?" "First time dealing with kids?" Ryan Morgan asked, entering the bridge with the calm of someone who had survived both Special Forces training and countless parent-teacher conferences. "Let me explain something about human children. They're basically tiny scientists with no fear and an endless capacity for asking what if." Narrator's note: the what if phase of human development is regarded by many species as one of the most terrifying forces in the known universe. As though to prove Ryan Morgan's point, Tyler Adams's voice crackled over the ship's comms. "Hey, did you know if you cross these wires here, you can make the artificial gravity do a really cool dance pattern?" The bridge crew watched in horror as the ship's gravity began cycling through what could only be described as the Macarena. "That's my boy," one of the boarding party members declared proudly. "He gets his engineering skills from his mother." KX, now faced with both armed parents and total chaos aboard his ships, finally did what he should have done hours ago. He surrendered. "Please," he begged, "just take them back. We'll sign whatever treaties you want, just make it stop." And so ended the shortest attempted invasion in galactic history, defeated not by Earth's advanced fleet of reverse-engineered ships, but by the combined forces of elementary school chaos theory. The reunion scene was exactly as you'd imagine when you combine relieved parents, proud teachers, and children who were convinced they'd just had the best field trip ever. "Mom, Dad!" Tyler Adams and Sophie Bennett ran to their parents, all excitement. "You'll never believe what we learned about quantum mechanics." Their mother, glancing at the crayon-decorated alien console nearby, smiled. "I'm sure you'll tell us all about it after we have a long talk about playing with strange technology." Mrs. Rebecca Harris submitted her after-action report, which suspiciously resembled a school field trip permission slip. All students demonstrated excellent teamwork and problem-solving skills. Some minor property damage occurred during the educational experience. Parent signatures required for future interstellar incidents. The diplomatic aftermath was surprisingly simple. The Zelthar, thoroughly traumatized by their brief encounter with human children, agreed to pretty much anything Earth demanded, including a non-aggression treaty, technology sharing agreements, and a promise to never, ever try to use human children as tactical assets again. The treaty was signed in crayon, the kids insisted. The lasting effects? The incident became a universal cautionary tale. "Don't pull a Troy Harper" became slang for making an unthinkably bad decision. Alien species added, "Warning, contains human children" to their threat assessments of Earth. But the real twist came during the post-incident inventory, when it became clear that several pieces of alien technology had mysteriously disappeared. The Zelthar, too traumatized to ask for them back, remained blissfully unaware, while Earth's officials pretended not to notice that Tyler Adams and Sophie Bennett's next science fair project suspiciously resembled a quantum probability drive. When asked about it, Mrs. Rebecca Harris simply smiled, the same calm smile she'd worn during the entire ordeal. "You know how kids are," she said. "They're always picking up souvenirs on field trips." Final narrator's note: some say that on quiet nights you can still hear Baby Shark faintly playing through the Zelthar fleet's neural interfaces. The ship's AI developed a permanent twitch whenever it detected children's songs. And so ended the Great Earth School invasion, proving once and for all that while humanity might not be the most advanced species in the galaxy, we've certainly mastered the art of turning chaos into victory. Just ask any elementary school teacher. They've been doing it for years. Epilogue. The Zelthar Education Ministry has since added a mandatory course to their military training, Why We Don't Mess with Human Children, a survivor's guide to elementary school warfare.